The Striped Ships, Chapter 12. Mindful of her promise to Brother Cadwalla, Juliana passed through the abbey gates the next morning while the bell for prime was still ringing, and shortly afterwards was in the workroom picking at the threads of his crooked spear. He had left his needle for her thrust into the linen. It was a good one, of bronze, and had the dawn been a bright one, she could have made quick work of delicately teasing the stitches loose one by one, and drawing the thread out without disturbing the solid, laid and couched work of the horse's flank underneath. But the sky was overcast, and peer as she would, she worked more by feel than by sight, constantly catching a rust red thread instead of the dark brown one she was after, growing more tense by the moment for fear that Brother Alon would come in and find her where she should not be, doing what she had not been told to do. Slowly, though, the light brightened and the crooked stitches came loose, and she could thread the needle and set them in again, straight and true. She had barely finished when Brother Alon's brisk step sounded on the stairs. She stood up so suddenly that she overturned the stool and was writing it, flushed and clumsy fingered, when he entered. She retreated hastily to her place at the far end of the room, murmuring a greeting and not daring to look at him. "Good morrow, child. You're here betimes." "Yea, so, brother, I could not sleep longer. Will I wind the dark green first today?" Yea, so, the dark green. As well that as any." His voice was preoccupied. She risked a glance and found him standing at Brother Cadwalla's place, a great roll of fine woven linen slung over his shoulder. He was looking, she was sure, directly at the new-made spear. With her heart pounding guiltily, she drew in a breath, ready to defy him, to demand if he had fault to find with her stitches, to defend herself for only repaying kindness. Before she could speak, he did. "What is your name, girl? Jilly?" "Juliana." "Ah, yea, so, but I have heard them call you Jilly." "Many do, most do," she admitted. "I cannot stop them." "You prefer your true name?" "I do, then." She did not know why or when she had resolved to be Juliana to this monk. She knew only that she had. "Then so I shall call you Juliana. You embroider well. Those stitches are even and true." She felt the heat rush up into her face and her hair. "As God hears me, I did not mean to do more than I ought. I meant only—" "I know well what you were doing and why you were doing it. Do not trouble yourself, child. I saw the kink in that spear yesterday and knew he would have no peace until it was straight again. A fine craftsman, Brother Cadwalla. He will set stitches here until he himself says ended. But his eyes are going." "I fear so, brother." "It is in God's hands." He moved to the long north side of the room and dropped his roll of linen under the high row of windows. Juliana turned to the hank of dark green, still warmed by his unexpected word of praise, and warming to him in spite of herself for the respect that he paid Brother Cadwalla. In a moment the embroiderers began climbing the stairs to the workroom, and the day's work began. Aside from a secret exchange of glances with her, Brother Cadwalla took no notice of the new stitched spear, merely settled to his task as she settled to hers. But as she wound the dark green and then carded a brown fleece for the widow Godliva's spinning, Juliana kept a curious eye on Brother Alon, who had summoned Brother Adam from his needle and set him to drilling tiny auger holes at intervals all along the north wall, at about head height. Into these Brother Alon was tapping a row of the thin, hard paneling pegs, burying them only halfway, and then together they stretched the new linen flat against the wall, hanging it to the pegs by the edge of the strip of coarser cloth sewn on all along the top. These extensions at top and bottom were twice as wide as the ones attached to the section on the frame, and the new section was only half as long as the one being worked on, the length of the room and no more. Juliana was not the only one close observer of the new activity. Old widow Hildegard and her pigeon-shaped daughter Elgiva, whose stools were next to each other at the frame, had been murmuring together in their twittering voices, and glancing as often at Brother Alon as at their work. The spinsters were openly watching, letting their hands mind their tasks, and half-deaf Christiana finally spoke out quite audibly to Brother Cadwalla. God's mercy, brother, what are they doing? Are we to embroider the next length on the wall, then? Brother Alon's laugh rang out as he turned to face them all. Even of such artists as you, I would not ask that. Indeed, I mean to make the work easier for myself and you. This is the next length, yea, so? I will draw the designs on it as it hangs here, not as it lies stretched on the floor of the refectory, which is a penance for a man's back. And I am having a different frame built. As you see, this section of linen is shorter than the first two, so there is no excess to roll up at the ends, and made wider with the extension, so it may be rolled instead from top or bottom, as needed, to bring every part in easy reach of your needles. We will complete the borders too hereafter, instead of calling on the nuns. Those long pieces were too cumbersome. One must learn by doing, yea, so, when a thing has not been done before. There was a murmur of comprehension and approval, laced with a few blunt comments from Christiana, who remarked in her too audible tones that 'twas a pity it had not been thought of earlier. But Brother Alon only nodded his curly tonsure and heartily agreed with her, and Brother Adam, limping back to his work at the frame, paid no attention. It would be weeks, perhaps months, Juliana judged, before they finished the present section in any case. At mid-morning, when the two monks returned from terce and morrow mass, Brother Alon was carrying a sheaf of parchment ends, plainly discards from the scriptorium, which he laid out in careful order on the floor beneath the new linen. Juliana, momentarily idle until Ingold finished a skein, edged close enough to see that they were covered with sketchings, swift, vigorous strokes of a charcoal stick, a few curves here barely indicating horses' rumps, a forked shape there saying man, broad arches and peaks that meant tower or hall or castle, and farther along came a series of linens with upcurve ends, the unmistakable profile of ships. That same afternoon, Brother Alon began to transfer his designs in full size upon the new linen. He worked with red chalk, lightly but with certainty, occasionally wiping out what did not please him, sometimes changing the position of a figure or the space between two. Juliana put her fingers in charge of her thread winding, and scarcely took her eyes off the pictures magically growing on the wall. Today her shoulders did not tire. She did not weary of the constant thin scraping of the wool against her fingers. She scarcely heard Christiana's sudden blurtings, Brother Cadwalla's soft replies, or the twittering gossip of Widow Hildegard and her daughter, the even pacings of the spinsters as they crossed and recrossed in front of her. She merely watched and marveled, wishing powerfully that Wulfric could be here beside her, watching too. One eventide in the second week of March, buying eels in Mercery Lane on her way home from the workshop, Juliana heard a familiar, imperious voice and turned to peer at a young woman standing at the alewife stall. It was Avril, Lady Edwina's older daughter. "Avril?" she gasped, and the other turned and stared at her. "Jilly, is it you?" "It certainly is," said Juliana, clutching Avril's arm and drawing her aside from the press of sellers and buyers in the marketplace. "How is this? Is your mother here, then? Is Bernadette?" "All of us, since 2 days back." "And you mean to stay?" "We must. Grimulf came first from Rochester and told some renters they must move. My mother owns 3 houses here. They are poor enough places, but—" "You have come from Rochester?" "And before from Otford," said Avril bitterly. "And before that from Lewis. All gone. We have not a hide of land left, not one sheep of all those thousands, 4 horses out of 80, and these 3 houses. They have taken everything except my mother's bride gifts." No need to ask who they were. Lord Alfgar had owned large estates in Rochester, Otford, Lewis, all now in greedy Norman hands. "Wulfric saw Grimulf a 7 night ago, or thought he did. I did not believe him. Grimulf is all we have left, and Gaitha his wife, you remember, my mother's woman, and a groom and one of the housemaids, though I dare say there are those worse off than we are," Avril added. Her prominent blue eyes widened as they examined Juliana more closely. Jilly, is that your same old mantle and kirtle? Where are your shoes? Apparently nothing would change Averil's high-born ways. I am one of those worse off than you, Juliana told her dryly. But are you wed then? You wear a headrail. I wear it for warmth. I am neither wed nor betrothed, nor likely to be, Juliana glanced, suddenly conscious at Averil's bare head. She was to have been wed last Christmas-tide. Alfric is dead, like my brothers, Averil said bleakly, and poor Bernadette's betrothal has not yet signed. We have heard nothing since the ships came. They were silent a moment. Then Juliana said, Where is this house, Averil? I will find it. I must see your mother and Bernadette. It is in Worthingate, Bertha, in Stour Street, at the corner where the lane turns to St. Mildred's. A stone house with a new thatch. Come there with me now, Jilly. My mother will welcome you. Audrey must have eels for supper. I will come later, as soon as I can. Conscious of the dusk fast gathering, Juliana sped back to Heathen Main Lane, left the eels, and heedless of the meal that she would be missing, hurried back along the lane and into Stour Street. She felt she could not wait to see Lady Edwina, to fling herself into arms that would welcome her, that had known the old life, the old ways, that had embraced her mother, greeted her father. She had no need to search for the house. Bernadette was standing before it waiting, and flew to meet her the instant she appeared, to hug her and ply her with questions, and urge her up the outside stair and into the house, which was a grander house than Juliana had stepped into for 18 months, whatever Averil said. And in the far end of the room where Lady Edwina waited, there was another greeting, as warm as she had hoped for, and indeed watered with tears before it was finished. Juliana, my child, my lost Chalaric's betrothed, my marriage daughter that was to be. Alas, it will never be now. My Chalaric is lost to us. Ah, God be merciful. Lady Edwina hid her trembling mouth in a fold of her headrail, closed her eyes, and swayed back and forth. You have brought it all back to her, whispered Bernadette, as Averil soothed her mother and called for Gytha to bring a draught of all heal herbs laced with honey. Usually, she is able to forget that Chleric is dead, and our brother Hereward and father. Able to forget? Juliana glanced at Lady Edwina in consternation. Certainly, she had changed from the stately and self-assured noblewoman in Juliana's memory. She looked older and far thinner. Her high-bred features were pale against her dark headcloth. Her sunken eyes were dimmer. But does she wish to? I think she must. Too much has happened to us. Too fast, Jilly. It is better when she can put it from her mind. Or pretend to, so that she may turn a calm face to her daughters, thought Juliana. Her gaze shifted to Bernadette. She, too, had changed. Thinned, grown taller, no longer the chattering 9-year-old who had been frightened by the long-haired star. She was now a quiet, soft-voiced maid with great hazel eyes, near the same age Juliana had been herself on the day the striped ships came. She will be calmer soon, said Averil, leaving her mother to Gytha's ministrations, and coming back to her stool beside Juliana. Do not ask about Rochester, about anything, Jilly, she said in a low voice. Rather tell us of your family. Wulfric, too, is here, and your mother and Ragni and Swain. Dropping her own voice, Juliana told briefly the story of the month since they had met, her journey with Wulfric, something of their new lives here. Of her mother, she said only that she was safe in Winchester. With your uncle, yea so. I suppose it could not be helped, Averil said in disapproving tones. He was always good to her, but I would he were not Norman. I also, Juliana said colorlessly. Say nothing of Normans to our mother. It will only distress her, Averil murmured as Gytha went back to tend the soup kettle at the other end of the room, and Lady Edwina turned her chair and her attention to the three of them, dry-eyed now and reaching for her finger netting with hands only slightly trembling. She began talking as though she had last seen Juliana only a fortnight or two ago. Do you say you are working again at your embroidery? Ah, thread girl, at the Abbey. Then it is an altar cloth you make, a hanging, A large one, indeed so, for a bishop, is it? I believe so, lady, Juliana answered hurriedly. I have been told it will hang in a church. I have forgot the name. Yea, so, you were ever a forgetful child, but a good child certainly. Daughters, tell Gaitha that Juliana will sup with us this evening. Lenten fare only, but so it must be. Is your mother well, my love? I hope so, lady, murmured Juliana, as Averill, with a warning glance, went to do as she was bade. It was a difficult conversation, but Juliana quickly became deft at forestalling the wrong questions or evading direct answers. It was not long before Lady Edwina's hand steadied on her netting work, the right one plying the long needle, the left fingers flying as of old in the complicated looping and holding and knotting, as she fashioned a glove. At the same time, her questions gradually gave way to the old stream of placid complaints about lazy servants, the wind, the cold, her daughter's carelessness, all addressed to no one in particular. It is better so, whispered Bernadette again, with a look defensive yet apologetic in her hazel eyes. Tell us more of your own life, Jilly. She will pay no heed. So Juliana, somewhat defensive herself, explained about her attic at Tolley's, and Bridget's dead brother's shoes, and the 3 pennies a month. It is not the old life, but it is a free one. It is not a proper life for your father's daughter, Averill objected. You would do better to live here with us. My thanks, but I do very well at Tolley's, retorted Juliana, rebelling as always against Averill's overbearing ways. I have had enough of alms. It would scarce be alms, Bernadette put in quickly. Averill, can you not learn to put honey on your tongue? Nonsense, I did not mean. Averill glanced at Lady Edwina's serene face and added bitterly, do not tell her you are not safe in your mother's home. As you will be, doubtless, the moment your mother learns where you are, Bernadette sighed. God forgive me, Jilly, but I would that you could stay here in Canterbury, even in your attic, now we are here. I wish it too, but it may not be possible. Well, so, life is as God wills it, Averill said bleakly. I would I could leave Canterbury and become a nun of St. Anastasia, which I longed for as a child. With Alfric dead, what else is there for me? But few get their wishes, and no Saxons, in this Norman world. Jilly will go to her mother, and I will stay here with mine. You must not mind my saying so, Jilly, but I do not think your mother will recognize you in those rags you wear. Have you truly no others? I do certainly, Juliana exclaimed, the more quickly because the same thought had been in her mind. At least, I will. I mean to give one of my pennies next month for some of Audrey's weaving, to make a new kirtle, as best I can. You were never a seamstress. You must take one of mine, Averill told her, and my old green mantle. Yea, so there is no cause to prattle about alms. I have never liked green with my complexion. You will do better to give the cobbler your penny for sounder shoes. She speaks truth, Jilly, Bernadette said softly. Please take them, or we shall both feel hurt. I will then. I thank you, said Juliana with difficulty, and a sudden knot in her throat. You are freely welcome. You would have been our marriage sister, remember, if life had been otherwise, and Choleric would have given you far more than a few old garments. Averill would not have been Averill had she not added, we would be shamed to have you looking like a beggar maid when you are almost kin to us. Bernadette caught Juliana's eye and rolled her own expressively upward in the old droll way, and Juliana, stifling a sudden laugh, ceased thinking of her mother. Soon Gaitha brought the food and Grimulf 2 beeswax candles, and for the space of an hour or two it seemed almost as though time had sped backwards, and the striped ships had never been. But the seeming went no deeper than the surface. As the days of Lent passed, busily for Juliana at the workroom, and Wulfric at his books, emptily for the uprooted family of Lord Alfgar, Bernadette reported what Juliana could see for herself on her visits to the house on Stour Street. The life in Canterbury was not a good one for Lady Edwina. It is the idleness, Juliana told Wulfric as they walked one day at vespers toward Iron Bar Lane. What can she do that she once did? She has no great household to order, no flock of maidservants to keep busy, No fleeces always waiting to be carded and spun. She paces that little house all day and mourns what is lost, or nets gloves and stockings while the others try to help her forget that her sons are dead. God pity the poor lady, Wulfric said in a subdued voice. He glanced thoughtfully at Juliana and added, I would not want to forget what is, bad though it might be. Nor I, Juliana agreed slowly, wondering if she meant it. But I am glad I have no time to brood. After a moment, she added, Bernadette wishes me to ask Brother Alan if her mother can join us in the workroom. But how can I do that? I am only the thread girl. She was not so long to remain so. One day in the week before Palm Sunday, Brother Cadwalla, frailer than ever these dark days of Lenten fasting and chill wind, took to his bed with an aching rheum, and soon sent word to Brother Adam that though he was better, his eyes were weary of straining, and he would not return to the workroom. This surprised no one, but it posed a problem for Brother Adam, who, in this season, knew of no monk with the skill or the hours free of other duties to replace him. He suggests, Brother Adam told Juliana that morning, that his young friend and helper Jilly take his needle. Do you think you can use it well enough to continue his stitching? Her breath catching in her throat, Juliana said, As God hears me, I will try. But who then will be thread girl? Demanded Christiana. Already we wait for the thread to be spun. Now must we also wind it ourselves? It is easier to find a thread girl than an embroiderer, Brother Adam pointed out. Perhaps one of you knows some idle maid or needy woman. Before she could take thought, Juliana said swiftly, I know such a maid, brother. She is the daughter of a king's thane once I knew at home in Pevensey, lately come to Canterbury. She could wind your thread. I know her well. She was ever a friend to me, serious and trusty. Breathless at her own daring, she added recklessly, And her lady mother, if you should want her, is a fine spinster, one to match widow, widow Godleva's speed and skill. Brother Adam's eyes held a spark of surprised amusement under their thorn bush eyebrows as he turned to examine her. But he said only, Would she wish to spin for us, a great thane's lady? The thane is dead, brother, and Normans hold his lands. I think she would welcome it. Your friends have a friend in you, Brother Adam thought for a moment, then nodded. Ask them, child, if they are willing. It could serve us well. Meanwhile, take Brother Cadwalla's needle, and let us see how you go on. He limped away to examine the rest of the work before settling on his stool. With fingers slightly unsteady from the speed at which things had changed in the past few minutes, Juliana threaded her needle and began to work. Though she knew herself to have been well and rigorously taught by Lady Edwina, it was nervous work at first, and slow because of the rigid care she was taking to make each stitch perfect and ruthlessly pick out whatever was not. But as the morning wore on, her hands lost their clumsiness, and when Brother Adam began to read to them of the life of St. Dunstan as he waited for thread, she forgot her fingers and began to use them with her accustomed ease. She was relieved, but not really surprised, when Brother Adam examined her work at midday, and without comment merely smiled at her and left for sext. It was the next morning, when she arrived early, eager to begin, that she found Brother Alan already there and working with his chalks. He was drawing the last scenes of the third section, and had pegged up the blank linen of the fourth section above it on the wall. He turned at once to greet her, and told her that he could scarcely tell where Brother Cadwalla's work left off and hers began. Your hand is different, as every embroiderer's is different from every other's. But go on as you have begun, and the hanging will not suffer. He smiled, nodded away her stammered thanks. She was by now too much in awe of him to speak naturally in his presence. Then he added, Brother Adam has told me of your friends from Pevensey. Oh, yea, so I have asked them, brother, and they will come tomorrow, or it may be Monday, to join us. I will bring them. Today Lady Edwina was not quite well. In truth, yesterday, having been the birth date of her firstborn, Hereward, Lady Edwina had wept for him all morning, and had gone to pray in church all afternoon, and Avril had decreed that she must rest in her bed until she grew calmer. Juliana could only hope the new work itself would calm her, so that such days would not come often. Brother Alon merely waved the apology aside, repeating with an odd intentness in his bright blue eyes, "From Pevensey. You come from Pevensey too, then?" "It was my birthplace and my home until—" She broke off, swallowing. "Until?" "Until the ships came." "You were there that very morning, Michaelmas Eve. You saw the ships?" "I did. I was at the shore. There was fog." Her throat closed. "It is hard for you to speak of it." "It is, then." Images of the old dream rose like phantoms. Brother Alon came toward her, looked carefully into her face. "I do not wish to cause you pain, Juliana, but if you could speak of it—" He broke off, gestured toward the work on the frames, the chalked-in new section on the wall. "I am trying to draw a truthful tale. This work was begun by Norman command. It will hang in a great Norman church, but it must not tell only a Norman truth." "I understand," she breathed. The old suspicions were dissolving in her mind like mist. It was as if she had willed him to say this. "So I have taken great care with this," he went on. "I have spoken to Saxons who were there with Earl Harold in Normandy. I myself saw King Edward buried in his new abbey at Westminster. I have questioned villagers who watched the great battle at Caldbeck Hill, and a Saxon archer who survived it, but I have found no one from Pevensey until today." After a difficult moment, Juliana said again, "I understand, brother. I will speak of it. I will try." Footsteps sounded on the stair. Brother Alon's glance flashed to the doorway, returned, bright with thanks, to her face. "No need to do this now, but Sunday, after all the processions and the mass, I will come here and wait for you." Widow Hildegard and Elgiva, softly twittering together as always, came into the workroom, and Brother Alon turned away. Juliana, dry-mouthed and wondering if she could indeed do what she had promised, went to her stool and took up her needle.